So, we will start with the next set of generalizations, which is number 13. So, first I am going to read the generalization, then I will help you how to understand it, and then you need to be a little careful when you try to figure out the words like syntagmatic or paradigmatic, stuff like that. Okay. So, let us read what the Gen 13 says. It says, given a category with two opposing semantic terms, the form of the simpler value tends to be not more complex than that of the other term. My suggestion for you would be to read it multiple times, and when you read it, you will get clarity about the terms like opposing semantic terms, simpler value or complex value and stuff like that, right. So, how to understand which one has a simpler value, which one has a more complex value. If you can recall, we did talk about overt versus zero affixes in one of the previous sessions. There are languages which have both the overt ones, as in tree, trees. S is the overt plural marker, but when you say sheep, sheep, you do not really see any overt plural marker. So, that is 0, that though it might have a plural morpheme, but it is considered to be a 0 marked, or it is considered to be null marked plural affix. It does not have an affix in that sense on the surface, but it does have the pluralization in the semantics or in the meaning. So, if you remember, we were talking about the binary division 1 and 0 in case of form and meaning. Tree, trees, form also gets 1, meaning also gets 1, but in case of sheep, sheep, form is getting 0, meaning is getting 1 as far as the division is concerned. So, keeping that in mind, to understand the generalization number 13, I would ask you to look at the data on the screen here. I have had 3 languages here, English, then Pangasinan, if I read it correctly, my apologies if the pronunciation is incorrect, then we have Swahili. In these 3 languages, let us see how the pluralization works. We also studied a couple of other examples in the previous slides, in the previous sessions. So, in English, for example, chicken and chickens. So, there is an overt plural marker. In case of Pangasinan, you see the singular chicken is manok, manok, but when it is plural, it becomes only manok. So, absolutely different. So, in case of the singular, the number of morphemes are more. In case of plural, you are actually dropping one of the morphemes. Similar is on the other hand, we have Swahili, where morphologically also the forms are different, phonologically also it is different. So, tu is man and wa tu is men. So, m, like the mer morpheme, has been replaced with wa when it becomes plural. So, keeping in mind these 3 kinds of morphemes that we have in hand, now let us approach the generalization 13. So, what does it say? It says, given a category with 2 opposite semantic terms. So, let us say chicken and chickens, these are opposite semantic terms, one is singular, the other one is plural. And what does it happen? The form of the simpler value tends to be not more complex than that of the other form. So, what is the simpler value here? Simpler value is chicken. And what is the complex one? The addition of a morpheme, chickens. So, the value or the form of the simpler value, that is not as complex as the one it has more complex value, right. So, which one, when you compare chicken and chickens, which form is the simpler one? It is the singular form, that is chicken. Which form is the complex one? It is the plural form, which is chickens, because it has 2 morphemes. So, what should we understand? If you compare these 2 forms, the one which has a simpler value does not seem to be more complex than the other one. So, the value of chicken as a singular unit will be less complex than the value of chickens. Is it clear? Could you understand? Now apply the same thing to the second language, that like the other language that we have listed here. Pangasinan, in this language, which one is the simpler value? Chicken in singular is known as manok, manok. Chicken in plural is known as manok. So, when you are comparing these two, the simpler one is the plural form and the complex one is the singular form. So, the value of the plural here is less complex than the value of the singular, as simple as that. So, you need to find out which form is simpler. So, it must be, or it tends to the generalization that in most of the cases the form with the simpler value tends to be not more complex than the other form. However, in case of Swahili, the story is a little different, where man and men, they have two different phonological and morphological representations. Swahili also other Bantu languages. So, here we have just taken into account one of the Bantu languages, that is Swahili. So, here what happens, both the singular and the plural are affixed. In the singular also you have a prefix m, and in the plural also you have a prefix wa. So, how would you find out the simplicity and complexity of the simpler value or the complex value of the particular term? So, in that case, both considering both the affirmative both the singular and the plural are marked. So, the correlation between the simplicity of the form and the simplicity of the meaning can be stated like this: the one which is less complex, the one which has a more simple form will have less complex value. So, English has a different story. The singular is simpler, plural is complex. Pangasinan, singular is complex, plural is simple. In case of Swahili, in both the cases there are affixes. So, how to generalize this form? So, the concern here is that in case of Swahili, if you take into account, the one which has less complexity will also have a less complex form. So, that means considering man and men both have affixations in Swahili, it is not possible for us to find out which one is more simple, which one is less simple. That is how the generalization 13 comes into existence. So, let us read it again. Given a category with two opposing semantic terms, here we have taken the example of plural in case of let us say Swahili, but maybe I will give you another example where there are opposite semantic terms. Let us say here is a word, again the Swahili data, that means this is mi ru, that means to see, right, and there is a word mi nai, that means to not see, right. Okay. So, when it is semantically opposite, in that case also in both the cases you will see the overt affixes. So, here the trick or the generalization is that the form which has a simpler value seems to be not more complex than the other term. So, if mi ru has a simpler value, it will be less complex than mi nai. If m tu has a simpler value, it will be less complex than wa tu. In case of chicken and chickens, chicken has a simpler value, so it is less complex than chickens. Manok, manok, it is more complex than manok, which has a simpler value. So, English and Pangasinan, they are diametrically opposite to each other. In case of English, the complex one is the plural. In case of Pangasinan, the complex one is the singular, but the generalization holds true. If the term has simpler value, it will be less complex than the other one. Okay. Now, let us move to the 14th generalization. The 14th generalization says, okay, before that please read the paradigmatic and the syntagmatic relation. You might have to find it, like you might have to understand it when I ask you some questions related to it. So, paradigmatic and syntagmatic, these are the semantic relations that we discussed in morphological typology. So, what happens in syntagmatic relations? In such case, semantic relations between words that can co-occur in the same sentence. So, if it can co-occur, the words would be considered in a syntagmatic relation. In case of paradigmatic relation, the words that can be substituted with other words in the same category. So, we will go back to it in more detail a little later, but then as of now, just remember these two relations or these two semantic relations would be required maybe towards a later stage. I am not very sure about it, but just keep that in mind. In case we land at some discussions, we will get back to the syntagmatic and the paradigmatic ones. Okay. Now, let us move to the 14th generalization. Here it says, the free word order of affixes is rare across languages, and if a language has it, it also has a fixed affix order. If you can recall, we did talk about free and rigid word orders in case of let us say noun, like subject, verb and object things. So, what we need to discuss now, after we got to know how reduplication works and how the kind of opposing semantic relations or the semantic terms are studied under the category of morphological typological generalization. Now, let us move to the word order. So, if you can recall, the first three types that we, or the first three tools that we had in hand, typological division on the basis of the choice of morphemes, then we had form of morphemes, and then we had order of morphemes. So, by now we have discussed choice and form. So, generalization 14 starts with the order of morphemes. So, how the order of morphemes are different and how it is accounted for in the typological literature. The 14th generalization is the free order of affixes is rare across languages. So, in most of the cases there is a certain order how you need to fix the affixes. When you say uneducated, so un is the prefix, ed is the suffix, and there is a order for it. The prefix happens before the root word, suffix happens or suffix comes after the root word, and it generally moves in this order. If you have many suffixes, then also there is an order. So, if you say let us say let me think about a word which has multiple morphemes, let us say dissatisfaction, okay, or dissatisfied, right. Let us say dissatisfied, again that also has dis is the prefix and ed is the suffix. Let me think about a word which has multiple suffixes in English, and that will help us to understand this generalization in a morphological typological research or morphological typological literature. So, when I think about multiple suffixes in English, I would find out a word like professionally. Let us say this is what strikes to my mind for the moment. Let us say we will consider a word professionally, right. So, what is the root word? The root word is profession, then L and then Ly. So, with the or if you want to make it even more complex, you can also have a prefix like unprofessionally done. This work is unprofessionally done. So, there is a prefix un, then there is al, then there is li. So, there are three morphemes here and there must be an order for it. Even the two suffixes that you have, you can't say professionally, you can't say that. That means there has been a particular order. So, if I write it like this, so it will be unprofessionally. So, that is going to be a bad word, because there is a particular order which follows the affixation. So, that is how this is a very simple generalization. So, that means free order of affixes is rare across languages. And what does the generalization say? It says if a language has it, it also has a fixed order. The other way around is not acceptable. So, if it has a fixed word order, it may or may not have free word order, but if it has a free word order, it might have a fixed word order. Similar is the case with affixation. If it has a free order of affixes, it must have a fixed order of affixes, but if it has fixed order of affixes, it does not mean that it will have free order. So, we have to approach it from restriction on the freeness of the affixes, so that it can move to the fixedness of the affixes. So, across languages the word order is across languages the order of affixes, that is generally fixed, and if it has free, then it must have fixed too. So, that is about the affixation. The second generalization also talks about affixation of the affixes, like the ordering of the affixes, and it reads discontinuous affix order, that is infixing, circumfixing and interfixing. You remember these three, they were the discontinuous ones. It is unlike the prefix and suffixes, that is rare across languages. Yes, you do not find many languages which allow infixes, circumfixes and interfixes. And if a language has discontinuous affixing, it also has either prefixing or suffixing. So, that means these are the rare ones, these are the less frequent ones, right. These are the interlocked ones. If you can recall, we did talk about three types of affixation. First we had prefix, then we had suffix, and then we had like the one was preceding affixes, following affixes, and then we had interlocking affixes. The preceding affixes were prefixes, following affixes are suffixes, and interlocking affixes will have three kinds. We had infixes, circumfixes and interfixes. So, what does this generalization say? These interlocking ones are not much common in world's languages, these are generally rare. Considering these are rare, so it says if a language has these ones, the discontinuous ones, it must also have continuous ones like prefixing or suffixing or both, right. I hope I made it clear. So, the first three, infix, circumfix, interfix, are the rare ones. Most of the languages do not have it, but if the languages have any of these, then it must have either the prefixing or the suffixing or both, right. So, that is what about the order of the affixation that we have. Then we will move to the 16th generalization, which talks about the supra segmental affixing, which is considered to be rare across languages, and if a language has it, it also has segmental affixes, right. So, that means a suprasegmental affixes, they would be rare in some cases. However, if a language has suprasegmental affixes, then it will surely have segmental affixes also. Let us talk about an example. In case of so when we were thinking about the ordering of affixes, we just discussed the 15th generalization that says when it is related to the interlocking affixes like infixing, circumfixing and interfixing, these are rare. However, if a language has this, it also have the prefixes, suffixes or both. Now, let us move to the even minute features of affixes, the segmental and suprasegmental features. You can see here the segmental level means at the phonemic level, phoneme level. Suprasegmental level, that means you are actually talking about the feature level phonetic descriptions, the stress, intonation and stuff like that, nasalization. So, these are the suprasegmental features, but when you are talking about the individual phonemes, then that will be the segmental feature. So, what is the relation between suprasegmental and segmental ones as far as typological generalizations are concerned? So, it says suprasegmental affixing is rare across languages. You do not find much of suprasegmental or the tonal, intonational or nasalization level features in most of the languages in the world. However, this is not impossible, rather these are considered to be rare. What is the concern here? If a language has suprasegmental affixes, then it must have segmental affixes too, but the other way around may not hold true, right. So, that means the suprasegmental affixation is rare, and any language having suprasegmental affixes related to intonation, stress or nasalization, in such languages you must find the segmental affixes also. But if a language has segmental affixes, it may not have suprasegmental affixes. So, suprasegmental affixes is more exclusive than the segmental ones. So, most of the languages have segmental affixes, very few languages will have suprasegmental affixes. Considering suprasegmental affixes are rare, it does not it says that if a particular language has the suprasegmental affixes, it will surely have segmental affixes too, right. That is about the 16th generalization related to morphological typology. Then we will see related to the order of affixes, we have the precedence order. Precedence order means something which if x precedes y, x occurs before y. That is the simplest thing to understand. When I say unemployed, un is the prefix that precedes the rest of the word, right. So, what is the generalization say about precedence? Let us have a look at it. That is the 17th morphological typological generalization, and it says cross linguistically suffixing is more frequent than prefixing, right. So, generally you do not find many prefixes in the world's languages, rather you find more suffixes. So, the picture of this overall preference of suffixing, it becomes more differentiated if two factors are considered. And what are the two factors? One is the function of individual affixes, and when I say the function of individual affixes, I would like you to know, I mean what kind of meaning do they express, what sort of case do they have, what kind of subject agreement do they follow object agreement, definiteness. So, these are the ones which are related to the function of individual affixes. And the other one, what are the second factor? The second factor is the word order type. So, which one is coming before what, or which one is coming after what? In this case, I would like to cite some data from WALS project, that is World Atlas of Languages by Dreyer, Haspelmath 2005. They found out of 466 languages, there are 431 which have case suffixes. So, remember the statistics and refer to Moravcik's book again. This is the WALS data, and WALS data says the sample size of 466 languages that Dreyer studied, out of these 431 languages have case affixes. Okay. And these case affixes, out of these 431, only 35 have case prefixes. So, look at the statistics, look at the number. Out of 431, only 35 have case prefixes. That is how the 17th generalization comes into existence. What it says? Cross linguistically, suffixing is more frequent than prefixing. Again, related to the number of occurrences of prefixes and suffixes from the sample that has been studied. So, 466 is the sample. Out of that, 431 languages have case affixes, and out of this 431 affixes, only 35 have prefixes. The rest, all of them have suffixes. That is how 17th generalization comes into existence. Now, 18th is related to it. What is it? Case affixes tend to be suffixed. Again, the same data can be deployed here too. So, this 430s, 446, 31 they have case affixes, and only 35 have case prefixes. It is not out of 431, I am sorry, I think I got the data wrong a bit. So, the total number of samples that they have studied is 466, 35 have prefixes, 431 have suffixes, right. So, that is how cross linguistically case affixes tend to be suffixed. Okay. So, it is not generally prefixed because the number of case prefix is only 35. So, 17th and 18th, these are somehow sort of related typological generalizations. And the last but not the least in case of cross linguistic morphological typology is that language, let us read it first, languages that have verb final sentence order and postpositions are almost always exclusively suffixing. Again, it is not, it may not hold true for all the languages in the world, but almost all of them, like most of them. So, what is it? If the language has a verb final sentence, right, or a verb final order, something like Hindi, SOV, मैंने खाना खाया, I rice or I food ate. In case of this, the postpositions are almost always exclusively suffixing. So, when we do not have the prepositions or most of the South Asian languages, they follow the postpositions. So, if a language has verb final sentence or verb final order, then the postpositions are always exclusively suffixing. You do not really see at the in the prefix form. So, that is all about the generalizations that we have had in morphological typology. My suggestion for you would be to read each of the generalization and go back to the reference book that I have suggested, Moravcik's book Introducing Language and Linguistics, published by Cambridge University Press. And when you look at the data given there and you tally it with the generalizations that we have listed, you will find out there is a huge empirical data available, and then it will be easier for you to understand. With this, I would end this section of morphological typology with the introduction. So, let me just recap how I started and how I ended this particular unit. I did give you an idea about the basics of morphology, why it is important, why is it relevant for us to know what morphology is, what are the basic terms used in the morphology, in the morphological system of natural language, and typologically what are the possible patterns that we see in the morphology section. And these are the 19 generalizations that have been identified so far by linguists who are working on the functional typology. And my suggestion for you would be, considering I am not focusing much on the formal typology here, rather because this is a basic level course. So, my focus is going to be primarily on function, but not exclusively on function. I would surely, I have already talked about a bit about the formal theories, plus in syntax also I will go into the formal stuff. So, but at least the generalizations are concerned, my suggestion for you would be to look at each of the generalization carefully, each of the patterns that I have discussed in various sessions carefully, and then find out the languages that you speak, do they follow, or these generalizations, do they hold true for your language or your languages. If you are a multilingual and you know the basic structure of your own language, just find out whether the generalizations they fit into your language. And similar sort of generalizations are going to be discussed in all the typological sections: syntactic, phonological, lexical, and others. So, with this I end morphological typology section. Do get back to me if you have any confusion about it. Thank you.